Hi everybody. I'd like to start these presentations usually by getting you to participate by telling me how many of you have already heard of Foursquare. I like that. That's good. Did I see a hand over here as well? Okay. How many people have the app installed on their phone? Oh wow, that's great. And how many people have checked in the last month? That's formidable. I like that. Great. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about why I think you should be using Foursquare for those that raised your hand for the first question and not for the third. Because I think that's going to give you the insight to understand how you can engage with our user base in interesting ways to spread your brand message and do some of the interesting stuff, which is the second part of the presentation. I'm going to give you some good case studies of tourism brands or hotels, airlines, etc. that have used Foursquare to, I think, to a great extent to do some creative marketing efforts on the platform. So let's start off with what we're all about. We recently redesigned the app and we have a 3-tabbed approach to this. As you know, the main action that you do as a user on Foursquare is checking into places. Checking into places is essentially broadcasting your location to your friends, but also trying to save a memory, essentially. When I go on holidays, I like to check into places that I like just to remember those places as well, right? That's a really important part of it. So it's not only about sharing, but it's about saving memories. Now, in the first tab that you see there, we have all your friends' activity. So essentially, they're check-ins. But what we've also tried to emphasize through the redesign that we recently did is expose some really good behavior that users are exhibiting on our platform, namely creating content, taking pictures, leaving tips at places. Tips, by the way, are mini reviews that people would leave at places, little nuggets of knowledge that other people can discover to make a better decision at that specific restaurant, hotel, bar, etc. The second tab that you see is Explore. Explore is really the core piece of what we're trying to kind of pioneer in the future, and this is what I want to take you to take away from this, is that we're no longer just a check-in gaming app with badges. We're actually trying to build this amazing recommendation engine that is personalized to you and gives you really specific and relevant recommendations. More about that in the second slide. And the third bit is essentially your profile page. We've jazzed that up a little bit, and we try to give you back more information about your behavior on the platform, because it's easy to check in 10 times a day, but it's not really that easy to understand your own behavior in retrospect. And I think what we're doing now is trying to show you, hey, you've been to so many travel lounges, you've been to so many hotels, you've been to so many airports, these are the places that your favorite places, this is the content that you've created on the platform, etc. So trying to give some of that data back to you as a user. Let's talk a little bit about the value propositions of why I think people are checking in. These are a few. There are many more use cases for this platform, but I think these are really main applications, and not necessarily only checking in, but using the app full stop, right? So the first value proposition, as I mentioned, are the recommendations that we believe are quite unique in the way we've built them. We do understand what type of things you like based on your check-in behavior. So for instance, I'm going to out myself as a snob right now. I like high-end cocktail places with like speakeasy type lounges. You know, I'm not the man that goes to the common pub that happily. I don't mean to insult anybody with that, but that's what Foursquare knows about me. It also knows that I like Japanese food places, right? So if I go to an unknown city in the US and I'm looking for a place to go to, let's say I end up in Arkansas, then I'll get a recommendation from Foursquare telling me, hey, you know what, this bar might be good based on the analysis that Foursquare is doing and looking at the cohort of people that are similar to me in London that are similar to Arkansas. Maybe some of these people from London have been to Arkansas and checked into places. We take that data into account to give you recommendations of places you might want to go, right? So we understand the social proximity between places rather than geographic proximity and give you recommendations based on that. The other thing that we try to do is expose your friends' activity on the platform and show you where your friends have been, which is pretty exciting, because if I go to Paris, I don't want to know what somebody said anonymously on some sort of blog. I want to know, hey, where have my friends been? While the blog could be really relevant to me, I think the social recommendation is of a stronger bond, and that might be more authentic for my purposes. The third thing that I would like to highlight, and I'm talking a little bit more about that, is rewards. Essentially what we're trying to do on Foursquare, it's actually the second thing I skipped. The second thing I want to talk about, sorry about that, a bit jet lagged still from my New York trip. So content, really, really important, and I think this is really important for a lot of you in this room. What we allow people to do, users first and foremost, is leave tips behind on places. So they geocode pieces of content to locations that other people can discover. This is pretty powerful stuff, especially if you think about people writing recommendations in restaurants of what dishes to eat and then leave a picture with it and write a little poem for a certain dessert. That's really inspiring to go and choose that dessert. But brands can also gain mindshare in places where they don't have authority otherwise, right? The History Channel, for instance, getting really excited about leaving tips at historical places and thereby gaining mindshare in a place like that. It's a TV channel. It's not something that should be front and center when I check in at Big Ben or near Big Ben, but it gains this mindshare, which is really exciting. And I'll give you some examples of travel brands that have done this. And the third pillar of value, I think, are the rewards. And the rewards are really ways for businesses with physical representations in the real world to incent you to come to their businesses or to return to their businesses as a loyal customer. We have loads of examples for that, and I'm going to show you some more. But obviously, it's no surprise that check-ins also have commercial intent, and capturing that intent and trying to get people to convert them to customers is something that we're quite excited about. I'll show you a couple high-level numbers. We have more than 2.5 billion check-ins on the platform. This powers the Explorer algorithm. This powers a lot of the data analysis that we're doing. We're a big data company now. We're not just like some checking game or something like that a lot of people think. This data has a lot of value in it, and we're trying to mine that value and give it back to the users as well as our partners. There are more than 45 million places in the database, more than 25 million users that are using the app. There are more than 1 million businesses that are engaging with those 25 million users. These are physical businesses that have claimed their presence on Foursquare and are trying to engage with those. And we have more than 50% of our users internationally. Foursquare is really just one message you want to take away from this slide: a mobile-first company. We're really built for mobile devices. We have an app on RIM, on Android, on iOS. We have an app also on the Windows mobile platform. So we're trying to be as broad as possible. We have a HTML5 client, or at least a web client, basically, that people can use. So we're really trying to be the go-to app for people that have a mobile phone and want to do something around location, right? I think the other applications that are on this slide, they're not necessarily meant or were thought as or invented in the sense of being mobile-first apps, and this is one thing that is really different with Foursquare. So let's switch gears a little bit. I hope I convinced a couple of you that raised your hand in the beginning to download the app and give it a spin and maybe see if it's something for you. I'll give you a little bit now about the B2B side, or what I think is interesting for you in the travel industry. I think there are a lot of different things or reasons why you should be using Foursquare if you're in the travel industry. One thing, you can create a lot more touch points with your potential customers or loyal customers. Again, this is by leaving tips and content behind in the real world that people discover and interact with in a natural fashion. So let's say I follow Lufthansa and they leave tips at interesting places for me as a traveler. I get these notifications about Lufthansa's tips naturally pushed to me while I'm checking into places that are relevant, right? Or the tips are relevant to the places that I'm checking into, which again makes them so much more valuable to me. And this is not a 30-second spot that somebody's pushing on you that you have to consume the marketing, where you have to consume the marketing message. It's something that is naturally pushed to you, which is relevant to you, and I think that makes it so much more exciting. Gamification, again, we have this game element on the platform, and I think you can dip into that and use it in interesting ways to encourage people to think differently about your brand and kind of have this aspect of competing with their friends, etc. Word of mouth, again, your customers are your, and this is really a mind shift. I think a lot of people are seeing this in marketing. The customer is media. It's no longer just an endpoint. It's actually somebody that's going to talk about you and spread the word for you. And people checking in on Foursquare and getting great experiences or finding great content and getting rewards share this stuff with their friends all the time. They push it to Facebook. They push it to Twitter. These are the people that are going to talk about your brand and create a viral message for you. So using these channels, no surprise, is obviously great. That goes for social in general. Specials, you can really incentivize people, especially if you have physical locations, to come back to your business or visit your business in the first place. And then travel content, you can take all the content within Foursquare and put it into your app, or you can put a lot of interesting content on the app itself and then create more value for users out there. Data, specifically if you have physical businesses, you can get insight into who's checking into my physical business, into my hotel, into my lounges, into all these places that I own, and what is the makeup of that demographic, what is their behavior, etc. This is really interesting data, obviously, for a lot of different reasons. I have a couple of examples for you that I'm going to breeze through. I'd rather have a little bit of time to have a chat later on and take some of your questions, so apologize to brevity. Starwood, what they did was they essentially said sync your Starwood account card loyalty program with your Foursquare account. Henceforth, what happens is when you check into Starwood Hotels, check into the W, for instance, I'll get additional points, right? Starwood gets this check-in on the back end. Let me actually run through this quickly because I think it's going to pop up a little bit more. So the first time you authenticate your Foursquare account with, let's say, a loyalty account, you will essentially giving the third party, which in this case would be Starwood, the authentication that, or sorry, the consent that you are happy with them having your data, right? We do remind every user their data is theirs. We're never going to get it to a third party, especially not individualized information. And if they create that connection, they're sharing their data with that brand, right? And once that happens, Starwood can see interesting things happening, people checking into different places, checking into their hotels, and understand more about the behavior of their customers. Not only when they're in their hotels, but when they're outside of their hotels, which is really interesting, right? Lufthansa has created a lot of tips at lounges around airports to guide their travelers in more interesting ways and make them aware of interesting opportunities of, I don't know, getting upgrades, etc. One of the tips that I like here, did you know that the world's largest passenger airliner, the Airbus A380-800, it could transport 4.5 million tennis balls. It has a takeoff weight of 560 tons. I read this the other day and I figured, how does that even work? Anyway, physics was never my strong suit. Moving on, I'm going to skip this because I'm going to talk about this a little bit later. Ritz-Carlton did a really interesting thing while they took their concierge service and all the advice that the concierges had and put that on Foursquare for all the different cities where they have a presence. And what they then did was they told their customers to follow them on Foursquare. When people are checking in the city, they now all of a sudden see all these Ritz-Carlton tips popping up here and there. And that actually creates an engagement with their content and makes them aware of the concierge service to begin with. And then people start using the concierge service more. That builds loyalty with the brand, which is something that they were after in this specific case. United Airlines, again, they did an integration with the API where you could tie your miles and more, or it's Mileage Plus, sorry about that, Mileage Plus account with your Foursquare account, and when you do that, again, you can check into places, get a lot of, get 50 additional bonus miles if you check into airports or if you check into lounges. And the great thing is United Airlines finds out if you're not traveling with them as well, right? So let's say you check into an airport and they realize you haven't bought a ticket, then they know you've probably been traveling with another airline, and based on that, they can give you maybe an interesting discount the next time or an interesting suggestion for a route, or ask you, hey, why didn't you travel with us, etc., etc., right? This is interesting data that they get. Again, you as a user consented to sharing that data with them. We would never do that on your behalf. And then what we're really trying to do in the US right now is we're starting to do a promoted product, which is essentially in the Explore algorithm, in the Explore recommendation engine that I mentioned a couple of times, we're showing off promoted updates, which essentially are updates by brands that are buying a placement within this recommendation engine. Now, we wouldn't show you any ad. We will look at your past past check-in history, and will see and try to match up interesting brands with your past behavior and give you relevant recommendation or relevant ads, right? And all the idea behind here is creating footfall for physical locations. That's the idea, and gaining mind share, obviously. A couple of slides left for the platform, and then we'll switch gears and have a couple of questions. The API is super powerful. We really recommend people playing around with this. It enables you to create a check-in functionality within your app. It allows you to do data visualizations, loyalty card integrations that I mentioned before. You can do local marketing with call to action, and then there's some other interesting stuff that I'm going to show you right now. Some of the apps that are using our check-in functionality, there are loads more. We have more than, I think, 20,000 developers using our API. We've introduced something that we call a connected app. A connected app is essentially you gaining a little bit of real estate within the Foursquare app. A great example for this is, I'm going to give you the weather channel, where you essentially connect the weather channel app with the Foursquare application, and within Foursquare then you check into places, and then the weather channel can push you weather information after your check-in on the post check-in screen, telling you, hey, we realize you're checked into Hyde Park, which is an open air place. For the next 6 hours you don't need your wellies and your brawly because your barbecue's safe, right? This is the type of information that you get, and this is really powerful stuff. Now, things like Blue Legends with Lufthansa have done a great job at using this platform as well to essentially create a game within Foursquare for Lufthansa customers. So what they're doing is you checking into places, and then they tell you, you know what, you can find more information within our app or within Foursquare about the airport that you find yourself in. And you're actually getting points within their app for checking in on Foursquare, and they've created their own set of badges, their own set of levels or game mechanics within their app that then incentivizes users to check into places and actually rewards them within their app, again, with different tiers and different mechanics. Last thing I want to mention on the API side, we've done a great partnership with Amex, which essentially means that you can use your American Express card to tie it up to Foursquare, and by paying with your American Express card, you can unlock value and get money back for certain things that you do. I'll give you an example. For instance, what we did over here with them, we launched recently. If you tie up your American Express card with the Foursquare account, and then you go on to Explore and you look for a place around you, you see, oh, there's a Tesco nearby and you wanted to go shopping. Tesco can then show you, if you spend more than £10 in Tesco's, you'll get £5 back. And then you'll go into Tesco's, you pay with your card, and you check in, and you'll get that money back on your statement after that. So there's an incentive, again, created for users to go to your physical business. The thing that we did in the past with the specials that you unlock on your phone is you have to show it to a clerk behind a till, wave around your phone, and they don't know what's going on. We're trying to make the redemption process of these specials seamless. That's why we're integrating with card solutions or loyalty cards to allow things to happen on the back end rather than having to deal with a merchant or with an employee in the store to get some value back. That's pretty much it. I would encourage you to look at Foursquare.com/business if you have a physical business locations, to claim your locations, to have insight into real world data analytics to see who's checking in and what's the profile of the people that are checking into your physical locations. Leave tips, create photos on the platform to gain mindshare, create specials to attract people to come to your stores, and then look at our API if you have a strong developer team to understand what you can do with the data that is within Foursquare already or that you want to put onto Foursquare. That's it. Omid Ashtari, omid@foursquare.com if you want to drop me a line, and @TheCoolGeek on Twitter. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Omid. Fantastic talk. Nice to see you here. He did just get back from New York yesterday. Still